Hello everybody, welcome to this video on Tutorials Point. Today we will talk in detail about presentation skills. Well, I would like you to imagine a situation. Have you at any point in your school, in your college or at your workplace ever faced a situation like this wherein your teacher or your boss at work has asked you to give a good presentation on a particular topic in front of a group of people? Well, what are the feelings that you go to? Do you feel challenged, anxious, nervous, or you feel like hiding under your bed and never coming out again? Well, if you go through such feelings, this is a video tutorial I would really urge you to watch out for. Because today we are going to talk in detail about how to give a good presentation and an effective presentation. Well, let's get started. Let's see what is there on the agenda today. We will talk about what is a presentation, what are the steps of a good presentation, anatomy of a successful presentation, and that's the crux of our module today, adding your own flavor in your presentations, how to structure your presentation, and what is the checklist for a successful presentation. Well, this is what is in store for us today, and I'm very excited to teach you because this is one of my personal favorite topics. So let's get started. Well, if we have to define what is a presentation, what do you exactly mean by the word presentation? Let's look at that. Well, a lot of people actually have a nightmare when it comes to giving a presentation in a room full of people. It is not an easy task, I must say. When I started training a couple of years back, I actually felt a nervous breakdown because of the fact that I had to give a presentation in front of a room of people. I felt dizzy, I felt nervous, and my hands started to sweat. Well, this is a phenomena which happens with most of the people. They get a nightmare about giving a presentation. You have a fear, a phobia, and that is something which we will challenge today in our presentation. Well, if we have to define what exactly is a presentation, let's look at that. It is a process of presenting the content of a topic to an audience which is consisting of one or more people. It utilizes some kind of a visual aid. It is generally a PowerPoint file containing all the slides for a given content or a speech. Well, it is a slide form of a PowerPoint presentation. You need to put together things on a slide in terms of a PowerPoint and place it in front of an audience. That is exactly what we mean by the term presentation. Let's look at what are the steps of giving a good or an effective presentation. There are certain steps which will help us. Let's look at that. The first is a strategy. Secondly, a good structure of a presentation. Presentation skills wherein the presentation actually happens. And the fourth, handling questions of the participants. Well, friends, today we are going to discuss in detail about all of these four steps which will in turn help us to make an effective presentation. Well, the first step of actually giving a presentation is formulating a strategy. Now, whenever your teacher at school or your boss at work has given you this entire project of making a presentation, the first thing, friends, you need to do is make a strategy. What is expected out of you? Why are you making the presentation? The needs of the presentation needs to be clear. So you need to ask yourself certain questions, which is you need to know the purpose of the communication. What exactly are we trying to show to people with the help of this presentation? Your communication needs to be clear. You should know the audience and their expectations. You should tailor your presentation according to the audience. Well, a presentation is not about you, it is about the audience, completely about the audience. You need to understand what their expectation from this particular presentation is, what are their likes, their dislikes, what strata of the society they are coming from, and what kind of languages they speak. When you know your audience, you will be able to completely tailor-make according to their requirement. You need to be concrete, specific, practical and relevant, meaning your presentation should not be out of the box. It has to be whatever is the requirement. You need to make your presentation around that, and your presentation needs to be brief and to the point. It should not be too elaborate and it should not be over the top. You need to make it relevant to the audience. Be clear about your objective, whether your objective of the presentation is to motivate people, to persuade people, to inform them about something, or rather just to teach them about something. You need to be clear, and rather I would say be crystal clear on what is the purpose of your presentation, and accordingly you need to make your presentation. Research your topic thoroughly. A presentation can be a complete disaster if you do not have researched your topic completely. You need to know in and out about that topic because you need to be prepared completely and thoroughly on that topic. This, my friends, is the first step of giving a good presentation. Know your strategy or formulate your strategy. Moving on to the second step, which is developing a flexible and a flowing structure. Now, once you know what is the purpose of your presentation, you need to make a structure around that particular presentation. Let's look at this step. After knowing what you have to say, you need to organize all the material in a very structured manner. You need to research your topic, get all the data, but with all this data, you cannot give a presentation. You need to edit it, you need to make it very, very polished. Hence, you need to make it crystal clear. Don't assume that information will speak by itself. You are the presenter and you need to speak on that particular topic. A presentation will not talk by itself. Audience might interpret the information in different ways. Everybody has a different mindset, and what you're actually trying to say through a presentation, people might not understand that. So it's important you need to clear it out to the audience what you want to say about that topic. Think on how you can hold the attention. Friends, today the attention span of people is hardly anything. People will look at you or rather listen to you for only 2 to 3 minutes and then decide whether they actually want to listen to you or whether they want to switch off mentally and physically listen to you. Well, you need to hold the attention of the audience, and we will discuss in detail about that later. How can you justify your ideas? Each and every idea of your topic that you have put down needs to be justified with a relevant fact or a figure. Think from the audience point of view. When you are giving a presentation, rather when you are actually structuring your presentation, you need to think from an audience point of view, meaning you need to wear the audience's hat and sit there and think whether the audience will really enjoy listening to this particular presentation. And how can you convince the audience? Today it's very difficult to convince people. They have their own mindset about things. Hence it becomes important. How will you convince the people is what you need to think about. Now, there are certain pointers or headings which will help you organize all of your structure and ideas in a particular way. Providing an outline or a roadmap. Your presentation cannot be haywire. It has to have a particular roadmap or a particular direction that it has to follow. Provide the intended and the expected benefits and the ground rules of the presentation. Organize the body of the presentation in a logical manner. There has to be an opening, a body and a closing of your presentation. Your presentation cannot run in any direction you would want it to. So it has to be logically and structurally presented. Plan ways to encourage audience participation. Well friends, it's very easy to give a one-sided presentation wherein you are only talking and your audience is not reacting or responding. A good presentation is one in which there is two-way communication. You talk, but at the same time you make sure that your audience also is engaged and is participating thoroughly. Maintain credibility, discuss pros and cons. You need to be looked at somebody who has an expertise on that particular topic you're talking about. So hence credibility is very important. Conclude on a high note. For a presenter, it is very important to start on a high note as well as concluding on a high note. Include an overall summary and propose action. There has to be a good closing to your presentation. You cannot just give an abrupt closing. So there has to be a conclusion with also a plan of action for the audience. Incorporate a lot of visual aids, graphs and charts. Your presentation should not have only text. It has to have images. It has to have a lot of graphs. If you're giving a sales presentation, there needs to be charts, graphics, etc. And you need to also prepare for contingencies. There has to be a plan B also in your presentation. What if something does not go right? What if there is a technical failure, or your laptop is not working, or your pen drive has conked off? Probably the speakers are not working. There always has to be a plan B in your presentation. Let's look at the third step. This, my friends, is the most important part of your presentation, because here you are actually talking about, when you are in front of your audience, your presentation skills. Well, I would like to inform you, presentation style and personal confidence are as important as the actual content of your presentation. If you feel your presentation will talk by itself, well, it will not. More than your presentation or the slides on your presentation, your personal style as well as your presentation style is very, very essential and important. Let's look at certain ideas with regards to how do you present a particular presentation. So your presentation style should have a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Well, if I stand here and talk to you in a very dull and a boring voice, would you like to listen to me? I do not think so. There has to be an energy and a very good enthusiasm which makes the audience feel a wow factor. Hence, it's important. There has to be a lot of attention to your body language, the way you stand in front of an audience. You cannot be very fidgeting, because it gives a sign that you are nervous and anxious. Stand properly in front of an audience, talk to them in a proper manner. Do not fidget with your dress, your hair, etc., because it again is a sign of nervousness. There has to be a proper body posture. You should not lean in any particular direction, and you should never stand with hands in your pocket or hands folded across your chest. Again, it's a negative or a close body language. Your voice and tone should have a lot of modulation. You should not speak in the same boring, monotonous tone. There has to be a high and a low, and stressing on the right words and the right tone becomes essential and important. Use humor appropriately. Well, a presentation becomes very dull and boring if there is no humor in it. So crack some jokes. Even if your jokes are dumb, it doesn't matter, but make people laugh in your presentation. It really helps to build rapport and connect with your audience, rather than making a one-sided speech which nobody would like to hear. Use mindful, or rather be mindful of your negative gestures. Do not bite your nails, for example, while you're talking to a set of audience. Negative gestures can be like scratching your hair in front of an audience, or digging your nose, or cleaning your ear in front of an audience. Well, these are negative body languages and people can really catch you there. Intellectual and emotional. Well, your presentation needs to have intellectual things in it, as well as you need to be emotional about it. Well, you need to connect with your people and be sensitive with your presentation. The next step and the last step is very essential for a good presentation, because here we are talking about how do you deal with questions which are coming from your audience side, and how do you really tackle people who might be hijackers. Well, anticipate questions and prepare the responses. It's very important, friends, that you need to in advance think about what are the kind of questions which the audience might ask you related to the topic, and you need to plan in ahead of such. Rehearse answers to difficult questions. Well, once you have jotted down your important questions which might be asked, you need to write down the relevant answers to those questions. So hence, in one word, prepare, prepare and prepare your questions in advance. Obtain additional information. It's very important to have extra information. Well, you never know when you might use which information. Hence, do a lot of research and collect a lot of information and just be prepared with it. Use questions to strengthen your main points, or rather your main arguments. Ask thought-provoking questions. You need to challenge your audience. You need to use them to your advantage. So ask them a lot of questions, or give them thought-provoking questions which makes them alert during your presentation. You don't want an audience sleeping through your presentation, do you? So well, keep them engaged. Ask a lot of open-ended questions. Now, open-ended questions will be in your favor, because audience can really talk in detail about such kind of questions, which will give you an idea about what is there on their mind. Do not digress from the topic. Whatever is the topic given to you, do not leave that and start talking in some other direction. So remain true to your topic, commit to your topic which you have to talk about, and do not divert here and there. Be honest. If you don't know the answer, then say so. Well friends, today people appreciate honesty, and honesty I feel is the best policy. If a question is asked by an audience and if you do not know the answer to that question, it's absolutely all right. We are human beings and we are not robots. We are not supposed to know all the answers. Hence, if you don't know a particular answer to a question, apologize and say, you know what, I don't know the answer to that question, but I will find that out for you. Last but not the least, control hijackers. You might have somebody in your audience who is asking you a lot of questions and making you divert from the topic. Such people are hijackers in your presentation and you cannot let them have their way. So try to control these hijackers by making them the center of attraction, and that is when they will feel a little demotivated and not ask you too many questions. Well, let's understand the most important part. What is the checklist for an effective and a successful presentation? And I'm sure friends you would want to know what are the ingredients of a good presentation. Let's have a look. Start preparing early, don't wait till the last minute, and that happens to most of us. We take a lot of leisure time and preparing the presentation till the last minute comes wherein we have to give a presentation and we are not ready. So start preparing early as much as possible. Think about your audience, what are their expectations and how you will connect with them. Be clear about the purpose of your presentation. Use a very effective introduction. Now, when you're talking about an introduction, introduce yourself in the highest regard, and also you can introduce a story, a joke, or a nice quotation from a good author in your introduction. You can also use storytelling for an effective introduction. Well, the introduction is the most important part because people actually make up their mind whether they want to listen to you or not listen to you in your introduction. Those 2 or 3 minutes are extremely important to hold on to your audience. Organize your presentation in a clear and simple manner. Keep it very simple and not use too many jargon words. Create an effective conclusion. As important as an introduction, a conclusion is also very important. Sound spontaneous, conversational and enthusiastic. Nothing works well than having a conversation with your people rather than making it very slide-driven presentation. Use the method of having a casual and a conversational thing with your audience. Use visual aids to aid the presentation. Any kind of visual aids in terms of using PowerPoint or using graphs, using some kind of a whiteboard with a marker pen, that really helps because it diverts the mind of people and visual people are more likely to hear you better. Cope with stage fright as it's normal and everyone feels stage fright. So there's nothing to worry about. Stage fright is absolutely normal. Well friends, that brings us to an end or a conclusion on presentation skills. We have discussed a lot in terms of how to give a good presentation, how to be mindful of your body language, what exactly are the ingredients for a successful presentation. Well, I hope after hearing to this particular module, you all go out there and make some effective and beautiful presentations and really wow your audience. Thank you so much for listening to us, and we do hope you've liked this video. Please don't forget to share your comments. Thank you once again.